My family refused to help me with my business because they invested in my cousin, but now that he's failed and my company is a success, they call my business the family business. They told me I didn't have what it takes to run my own business. They gave the money to my cousin, and he went bankrupt. Today, my company is worth millions, and my father is suing me over a piece of land my grandfather left me. And the lies he spread out there, well, the time to settle the score has come. They told me I wasn't the business type, that my idea would never work. But now that everything has changed, it seems like my company has more owners than I ever imagined. I'm Zachary, 34 years old, a man who grew up in a family that was, well, comfortably off. My father had several businesses around town: real estate, retail stores, and more. My mother owns several buildings, yes, plural. My grandparents, although not as wealthy, were the first entrepreneurs who managed to accumulate enough success to give my parents that initial push. There's an expectation in this family that if you're born into it, you either inherit something and don't ruin it, or you build your own empire. Naturally, I wanted to go with the second option. I wasn't some naive kid dreaming of opening a beach hut in the Bahamas, not that there's anything wrong with that. I had a plan, a solid one in my opinion: cybersecurity. Ever since I was 14 and accidentally hacked my school's server to change my detention record, I discovered I had a talent for computers. I went to college, graduated with a degree in computer science, and spent countless hours obsessed with cryptography, data breaches, and programming. After graduating, I realized cybersecurity isn't just an interesting career, it's profitable. Every company needs it. Every bank, every hospital. It's like selling umbrellas in a world where data leaks are a constant downpour. I had a vision, a potential client base, and a detailed business plan that I believed would impress anyone. But there was one problem: I needed money to start. A lot of money. I wasn't asking for millions, okay? Just enough to rent an office space, hire a small team, and invest in initial software and hardware. Sure, I could have started smaller, but I had a very clear picture in my head of what the company should be. One morning, I went to my parents. We were sitting in the living room, and I laid out my idea. I had charts, market research, and passion. I asked for a loan. I didn't want a gift, not free money. It was a loan I would pay back with interest as soon as the business took off. They said, "Zach, we love you, but we don't think you have what it takes to run a business." They didn't say it cruelly. My father sighed as he spoke, as if physically rejecting me hurt. My mother gave me that pitying look mothers give when they think you're being adorably naive. My father explained that being a good programmer doesn't automatically make you a good entrepreneur. Running a company involves, well, running it, managing accounts, employees, investors, losses, all those boring, unfun parts. And in their eyes, I simply didn't have that spark. To them, investing in me wasn't an investment, it was throwing money away. I won't lie, it hurt. At first, I was really angry. But still, I didn't want to give up on my dream. A month after my parents rejected my funding request, my cousin Bernard got married. It was a big, lavish wedding, with 3 days of events, champagne fountains, the whole spectacle. At one point, I was near the buffet table with my parents when Bernard came over, greeted them, shook my father's hand, and said, "Uncle, Aunt, thank you again for believing in me and helping me with the funds for my hospitality business. I couldn't have done it without you." I just stood there, staring at Bernard as if he had just confessed to being a time traveler. My parents laughed nervously, said something polite, and quickly changed the subject. I had asked for funding, and they said no. But Bernard got funding for a hotel. A freaking hotel. I left with a flimsy excuse because I felt betrayed. Not for them funding Bernard, good for him, I guess, but because they didn't do the same for me. They trusted Bernard, but me, their own son, apparently wasn't worth the risk. At some point, my grandmother found me sitting alone. "Zachary, what are you doing out here? Why aren't you inside enjoying the wedding?" There's something about grandmothers, you just can't lie to them. It's impossible. So, I told her everything. She just let me vent. Then, she said something I'll never forget. Zachary, sometimes people see potential in others because they see a version of themselves in them. It's possible your father sees a younger version of himself in Bernard. But that doesn't mean you aren't capable. You're different, and being different isn't bad, it's just different. She squeezed my hand and added, "You're smart, you work hard. Someday, you'll build something amazing. It'll just be on your own terms." I know it sounds like a bunch of cliches, but it was exactly what I needed at the time. The day after the wedding, I was still in this strange emotional fog, half motivated by what my grandmother had said, but also half devastated. I was sitting on my couch when my phone rang. It was my grandfather. Now, my grandfather isn't the type to call just to chat, so naturally, I was worried. I asked if everything was okay, and he said yes, he just wanted me to come see him. I simply replied, "Okay, Grandpa, I'll be there in 2 hours." When I got to his house, my grandmother opened the door with a warm smile. "Come in, Zachary. Your grandfather is in the office." He was sitting in his chair when I entered, but he immediately stood up and hugged me. In that moment, I started to relax a bit. My grandfather didn't waste time with small talk and said, "Your grandmother told me what happened at the wedding and how you feel about your business plans." "Oh, so that's what this was about." I nodded, trying to keep a neutral expression. He continued, "I want you to know one thing. I started my first business with nothing but an old van and a loan from my uncle. It wasn't easy, and everyone thought I would fail. But I didn't. And you know why?" I shook my head, indicating I didn't know. "Because someone believed in me. Sometimes, it only takes one person to make all the difference." Then, he reached into the desk drawer, pulled out a checkbook, wrote something, and handed it to me. Now, I won't tell you the exact amount, but let's just say it wasn't pocket change. It wasn't everything I needed to launch my cybersecurity company, but it was enough to get started. Enough to make a real difference. I stared at the check for a good 5 minutes. I finally managed to say, "Grandpa, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," he replied. "This isn't just money. It's trust. I'm investing in you." I was doing my absolute best not to break down emotionally. But my grandfather just stood up, walked over, hugged me, and said, "Make us proud." On the drive back home, I kept looking at the check. It wasn't just money. It was proof that someone believed in me. After securing the initial funding from my grandfather, I knew I had to be smart with every penny. I didn't spend it on fancy desks or modern office chairs. We started small. I brought in my 2 best friends, Adam and Luis. We pooled the little savings we had and rented a tiny, cramped office in the sketchiest part of town. But hey, it was ours. Those first 2 years were brutal. We worked 14 to 16 hours a day. We barely rested on weekends, and I survived on instant noodles and vending machine snacks. Luis was on the phone back to back, Adam was buried in code, and I, well, did everything all at once. Our first big client was a medium-sized financial firm that had just been hacked. We managed to fix their systems, recover their data, and prevent future breaches. That project gave us enough money to move to a slightly better office. Little by little, we started gaining traction. Word of mouth spread, and we began attracting bigger clients. About 4 years in, we hit our first major milestone. We had enough revenue to consider expanding. We opened our second office in a nearby city, and a year later, we launched a third in another major city. By that point, we were no longer a makeshift startup. We were a real company. Around that time, we also started a cybersecurity consulting firm. It seemed like the next natural step. Companies didn't just want us to fix holes, they wanted to proactively prevent them. And let me tell you, consulting money hits different. About 5 years after starting the business, I was finally in a position to repay my grandparents. I drove to their house, check in hand, and said, "This is yours, with interest." But I didn't stop there. These 2 people gave me everything when no one else would. So, I bought them a new house. Nothing overly luxurious, but cozy, comfortable, in a neighborhood they'd always loved. Seeing them walk through their new home, pointing out little details they liked, was one of the most rewarding moments of my life. While our cybersecurity business was thriving, Bernard's hotel was not. The pandemic completely decimated the industry, and Bernard's hotel never recovered. Apparently, my parents gave him even more money to try and help, but despite the efforts, and honestly, I feel bad for him, the hotel ended up shutting down. Last weekend, we were celebrating my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. After all, they are literally the reason I have everything I have today. I wanted to make sure they knew how much I valued them. I spared no expense. I rented a beautiful hotel ballroom, hired a catering team, organized a live band, and invited basically all their friends, family, and even some old neighbors they hadn't seen in years. Honestly, planning this event was more exciting than some of the biggest deals I've ever closed. The party was spectacular. Everyone was dressed up, the food was amazing, and my grandparents were overjoyed, which was the most important thing. But then my parents entered the scene. At some point in the evening, I overheard my father talking to one of his old friends. When the friend said he must be so proud of me, my father started talking about family values and how, with their support and guidance, they had steered me in the right direction. He also mentioned how it was practically a family business now. Excuse me, what? I hadn't misheard, had I? As the night went on, I kept hearing snippets of conversations where my parents were positioning themselves as the backbone of my success. We always knew he would do something great. We supported him every step of the way. That's what we do as a family, we lift each other up. And the climax was my father saying, all of this is thanks to the family's initial support. Look, I'm not saying I needed my parents to kneel before me or apologize with tears in their eyes, or anything like that. But them taking credit for something they actively refused to support? That really didn't sit right with me. I tried to enjoy the rest of the night, but I was too annoyed. So, I changed my speech. Originally, I had planned something simple, a heartfelt tribute to my grandmother and grandfather. But after everything I heard that evening, I knew I couldn't let it slide. I started in a light tone, made a few jokes, mentioned how their marriage was older than the internet, and talked about the love and respect they had always shown for each other. But then, I got serious. And here is the part of my speech. You see, Grandma and Grandpa didn't just build a life together. They built a legacy. A legacy of love, trust, and, most importantly, of faith in people. When I had a dream and everyone else shut the door in my face, they opened theirs. They didn't just believe in my idea, they believed in me. And everything I have today, I owe to their faith in me when no one else believed. I paused. My parents were looking at me with frozen smiles on their faces. So tonight, I want to propose a toast to Grandma and Grandpa, the only two people who believed in me when no one else did. This success is theirs and no one else's. My grandmother was crying, my grandfather was nodding with that calm, proud smile he has, and my parents were smiling stiffly, their jaws clenched. About 15 minutes after the speech, my father found me near the dessert table. He was basically yelling at me, "What the hell was that speech? Were you trying to humiliate us in front of everyone?" Humiliate you? I just told the truth. You didn't believe in me, but Grandma and Grandpa did. My mother joined in, you didn't need to wear the family's dirty laundry in front of everyone. It made us look terrible. At this point, I was already holding myself back from exploding. But then my father said, "You act like we did nothing for you. We gave you a good life, a good education. How dare you paint us as the villains in your little success story?" At first, I didn't shout, but my voice definitely got louder. You know what? You didn't believe in me. You had money, but you gave it to Bernard for his hotel without a second thought. And when it failed, you gave him even more. But when I came to you with my idea, you told me I wasn't cut out for business. At that moment, I realized the room had fallen completely silent. The guests were staring. My cousin Bernard, the one with the failed hotel, was holding his drink uncomfortably in a corner, as if he wanted to disappear. My father pointed his finger at me, "You are being ungrateful." And I replied, completely losing control, "Ungrateful? For what? No, I'm not ungrateful. I'm just saying out loud what everyone already knows. My chest was tight, my face was hot, and I realized I had just caused a scene at what was supposed to be a celebration for my grandparents. I looked around and saw my grandmother watching me with a soft, sad expression. Not disappointed, just sad. My grandfather had his arm around her, as if trying to keep her calm. That's when the guilt hit me. I didn't say anything else, I just turned, walked out of the ballroom, and didn't even grab my coat. I got into my car, slammed the door, and sat there for a few minutes, staring at the steering wheel, trying to calm down. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the argument over and over in my head. The next morning, I got a text from my grandmother. "Zachary, we love you very much. Please don't feel bad about what happened last night. We understand you." But that didn't really make me feel better. I've been thinking about this a lot, Reddit. I overreacted. I ruined a night that was supposed to be for my grandparents. Update 1. I think it's fair to give an update because you were all so kind in the comments on my post. I thought things would calm down after that night. I figured maybe everyone would reflect a bit, and then we'd have an adult, appropriate conversation. But no. My parents decided to take things to an extreme. It started subtly at first. A cousin texted me, something along the lines of, "Hey, Zach, is it true that you manipulated Grandma and Grandpa into giving you money?" That's what Uncle said. At first, I laughed because, come on, it seemed ridiculous. But then the calls kept coming. An aunt sent me a message on Facebook saying she was disappointed in how I used my grandparents' emotions to squeeze money out of them. I immediately called my grandmother because I needed to know if she was okay. She said, "Don't worry about what others are saying. We know the truth, and that's the only thing that matters." Honestly, she's the sweetest woman in the world, and hearing her voice calmed me down a bit. But I couldn't ignore the fact that my parents were spreading a distorted narrative. I'm not someone who likes confrontations, despite what my meltdown at the anniversary might suggest. But this time, I couldn't let it slide. I called my parents and asked, "What the hell are you telling everyone? Why are people calling me saying I manipulated Grandma and Grandpa?" My mother replied, "Well, didn't you cry to them? Made them feel sorry for you. That's manipulation." I said, "I wasn't crying to manipulate them. I was telling them about my situation because that's what you do when you have emotions." I heard my father in the background saying, "You can interpret it however you want, Zachary, but everyone sees you for who you really are." I said, "Okay. Perfect. Say whatever you want to everyone. I'm tired of trying to explain things to you." And I hung up. I thought hanging up would give me some peace, but it didn't. During the following week, the rumors only got worse. One relative said they heard I threatened to cut ties with Grandma and Grandpa if they didn't give me money. Another said I bragged about how I manipulated them and then laughed about it. I felt like I was losing my mind. I mean, how do you fight something like that? It's so absurd it's almost comical, except it's not funny when people you love start believing it. One day, my cousin Bernard, yes, that cousin, called me and said, "Hey, man. I know things are messy right now, but do you think you could talk to Uncle and Aunt and sort this out?" I said, "There's nothing to sort out, Bernard. They know the truth, they're just choosing to ignore it." I sent a text to my parents. "I can't keep doing this. You've made the choice to spread these lies, and I can't keep trying to convince you otherwise. I'm going to step back from this relationship for now. I love you both, but I can't keep letting this hurt me." And that was it. I blocked them on social media because they were posting passive-aggressive things about me. I stopped responding to relatives who were clearly just fishing for gossip. I'm in a strange place right now. If anything happens, I'll keep you posted. Update 2. Time has passed, and how it has passed. I wish I had better news, but life doesn't always want to cooperate. My grandfather passed away last month. The only good thing I can say about it is that he went in his sleep. In a way, it was peaceful, but it still hit me like a truck. I hardly need to say how important he was to me. And I'm not talking about money, but about his support and the kind of person he was. As soon as I got the news, I packed a bag and went straight to my grandmother's house. When I arrived, she looked so small and fragile, but she still managed to give me a faint smile and a hug. I don't think I've ever hugged anyone so tightly in my life. Arranging the funeral was hard, but I needed to do it for her. My parents were there too, and although we were civil, there was a strange tension in the air, as if we all knew there were unresolved issues, but no one had the energy to address them amidst the grief. The funeral itself was beautiful. Honestly, hundreds of people came. My grandfather was one of those genuinely good souls, and seeing how many lives he touched was incredible. Old business partners, childhood friends, neighbors, people came from everywhere to pay their respects. I tried to stay strong during the eulogy, but man, I lost my composure halfway through. My grandmother held my hand the whole time, and I'm so grateful she was there, because I don't think I could have done it otherwise. Now, this is where things started to get complicated. My grandfather wasn't incredibly wealthy or anything, but he owned a few properties, including a beautiful lake house. It's the kind of place you see on postcards, a wooden dock, large windows overlooking the water, surrounded by trees. My father spent a lot of time there as a kid, and even I have memories of running on the dock, fishing with my grandpa, and roasting marshmallows around a bonfire. During the reading of the will, the lawyers started listing the assets. When we got to the lake house, I found out my grandfather had left it to me and my cousin Laura. For context, Laura is my father's sister's daughter. She's honestly awesome, someone I get along with. But the moment my father heard the words Zachary and Laura will share ownership of the lake house, I swear I saw his jaw lock. He didn't say anything at that moment, but his expression said it all. He was furious, absolutely furious. After the reading, he left without a single word to me. My mother followed him, and I was left there, feeling awkward, with Laura and my grandmother. In the following days, while I stayed with my grandmother, my father completely avoided me. If we were in the same room, he acted as if I were invisible. My mother gave me strange, forced smiles, but she also didn't say much. It's amazing to me because it wasn't like I had asked for the lake house. I didn't even know Grandpa would leave it to me. But somehow, my father saw it as another personal attack, as if Grandpa was on my side in some imaginary war. Laura and I talked about it one night over tea. She admitted she also felt uncomfortable because her mother, my father's sister, wasn't exactly thrilled with the will either. But at least her mother wasn't acting cold. One afternoon, while helping my grandmother sort through some of my grandfather's old things, she sat down with me and said, "Your grandfather loved your father very much, Zachary, but he also saw how hard you worked, how much you fought to prove yourself. He wanted you to have something that meant a great deal to him." I think she knew I felt guilty about the whole situation, as if I had, unintentionally, caused an even bigger rift between my father and me. But my grandmother said something that stayed with me. "Your grandfather wasn't choosing sides. He was choosing love. He loved you. And he loved Laura. That's why he wanted both of you to have a place where you could always feel close to him." The night before I was due to go back home, I ran into my father in the kitchen. He was making tea, and I was filling a glass with water. For a moment, there was only silence. Neither of us said anything. But then he spoke. "You know, that lake house should have stayed in the family. It should be ours." I replied, "It still is, Dad. I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to turn it into a rental property. It's still ours." He didn't answer. He just stirred his tea, dropped the spoon, and walked away. Update 3. There are some things I need to address now, as my father has decided to sue me. He believes the lake house belongs to him, despite my grandfather leaving it to me and my cousin Laura. I can't go into too much detail because it's all very complicated and involves legal matters. But I'll try to give you an idea of what's happening. It all started when my father began showing up at my house unannounced, demanding that I hand over the lake house. At first, I thought he was just upset and wanted to talk, but when I refused, he started making threats. He said my grandfather's will was flawed and that I was in the wrong for not sharing the house with him. It was like a switch had been flipped in him. Then came the legal documents. Basically, my father's legal team sent me official notices, accusing me of improperly obtaining the lake house and demanding that I surrender it. He claims it's his inheritance, not mine, and that I manipulated my grandfather into leaving it to me. I mean, it's ridiculous. My grandfather's will was very clear. My mother keeps trying to mediate, attempting to convince me to give in and just hand over the house to my father so we can move past this. But I've reached a point where I don't believe there's any going back. I don't think we'll be able to repair what's been broken. I probably won't make another post for a while, at least until this is all resolved and I can share more details. Update 4. This update comes long after the last one, and believe me, I wish it had come sooner because that would have meant the whole court battle with my father was already over. But that wasn't the case, at least until now, when I can finally speak freely about everything that happened. Well, my father failed to overturn my grandfather's will and take the house, which would have been perfect for him, as I'll explain later. The lawsuit should have been quick, honestly, but my father had good lawyers, at least when it came to delaying things, and the process dragged on longer than usual. I think he hoped that, in the end, I would give up and say the house should be his. Something I couldn't do anyway, because the house also belongs to my cousin. Not even my aunt, Laura's mother, joined my father's crusade. And when my grandmother told me that my grandfather truly wanted me to have the house, I couldn't just walk away. Fortunately, my grandmother's testimony was very helpful in court, as my father had absolutely no evidence against me. The only outcome of all this was that he spent an insane amount of money he didn't have on lawyers, and also managed to make me spend a lot. If there's anything good I can take from this, it's that, aside from spreading his rhetoric about me manipulating my grandfather within the family, he broadened that narrative to more people, which started to affect my business. So, we played a game of chess and countersued him for defamation and damages. I don't know the exact value of the house my grandfather left us because we've never had it appraised, we don't want to sell it. But I'm sure what my father lost in legal fees and what he had to pay in the lawsuit I won was much more expensive. We're talking about significant sums. This is particularly bad for my father because part of his obsession with the house wasn't about sentimentality. He wanted to profit from it. His plan was to get it and sell it. I mean, my grandfather's body wasn't even cold yet, and he was already arguing about the inheritance because he needed the money. The reason is that the money he loaned to my cousin, along with other subsequent loans, left him in a financially precarious situation. And the fight with me only made it worse. But he has no one to blame but himself, since he was the one who chose this path. He could have used the money he spent on lawyers to pay off his debts and still have some financial stability. My parents had to sell the house they lived in. Part of the money was used to pay my compensation, and the rest went to cover other debts. They were really hit hard financially by this poor decision. They still own my father's business, which, as far as I know, is profitable. However, he's been looking to sell a part of the company to alleviate some of the debt. Someone in the family suggested I buy that part of the business to keep it in the family. But honestly, having my father as a partner isn't a tempting idea at the moment. Besides, it's not an industry that appeals to me or one where I can contribute with my expertise. At least I know my father won't have the money to keep suing me for whatever reason he might come up with. Edit: my father sold a part of the company to a relative. I thought it might interest some people who asked about that.
Reddit Relics comment. This story is a clear example of how greed and ego can destroy even the most important bonds, like those within a family. It's sad to see how OP's father chose money and pride over love and respect for his own child and parents. In the end, he not only lost the house but also jeopardized his relationship with his son and even his financial stability. I believe the grandfather's will was more than a simple distribution of assets, it was a way of leaving a legacy of love and unity. But unfortunately, not everyone was able to see that. What do you all think? How far should someone go to protect what's theirs while also preserving family ties? Share your opinion in the comments. Did you like this story? Then smash that like button to show your support for the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do it now and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Oh, and there are 2 more incredible stories waiting for you right here on the screen. Pick one and stick with me. That's it for now, and until the next Reddit story full of twists and turns. Reddit Relics, signing off.